Hello, good evening, and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Court dismisses suit filed by Aisha Binani seeking to be declared winner of the Adamawa State governorship election. Outside Nigeria, Iranian court asked Barack Obama to pay compensation for 2017 attacks carried out by armed group. President Ramaphosa's office backtracks and quitting ICC, citing communication error. My name is Femi Olanipeku. Now the news in detail. A federal high court in Abuja has dismissed a suit filed by Aisha Binani Dahiru, seeking to be affirmed as the winner of the Adamawa State governorship election. In Young Ekwo, the presiding judge dismissed the suit at the court session today following a notice of discontinuance filed by the All Progressives Congress candidate through her lawyer. Binani's counsel, Mohammed Sharif, had asked the court to strike out the suit. However, the judge held that the lawyer failed to address the court on the issue of jurisdiction as ordered on April 18th. The Adamawa governorship supplementary election was conducted on April 15th following the declaration of the March 18th poll as inconclusive over alleged irregularities. However, Hudu Yunus Ari, the resident electoral commissioner, declared Binani as the winner before the collation resumed on April 16th. The electoral body said the declaration of a winner is the responsibility of the returning officer. In the meantime, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, said today that the buses facilitating evacuation of Nigerian students from Sudan have finally arrived. NIDCOM in a tweet said the buses arrived on Tuesday night, with more buses expected to arrive on Wednesday morning with help from the National Emergency Management Agency NEMA and the Nigerian Embassy in Sudan. Last night, the Nigerian evacuation team in Sudan received some buses to transport Nigerian students to nearby borders in Egypt before airlifting them to Nigeria. And while CEO of Air Peace, Allen Onyema, today said he will be deploying to Egypt today to commence evacuation of Nigerians in Sudan. He disclosed that there are 3 jets on ground, adding that the evacuation is completely self-sponsored and free of charge.
I've been on the phone with the government officials. I've spoken with the Foreign Affairs Minister 2 days ago, and I've spoken with the Nigeria's ambassador to Egypt, who is the one covering Sudan too. I've spoken with them, and this morning I was on phone to the DG of NEMA, the National Emergency Authority or something. I've spoken with him, and we are planning to deploy on Friday. I wanted to do it today if possible, but I was told it will take 2 days before they get to Egypt from Sudan by road. Last night they told me the buses had left, but it will take 2 days. I wanted to deploy this night. So I'll be deploying on Friday, and maybe on Thursday night I might send about 3 jets out to Egypt. If possible, I just pray no country will delay us with overflight permit issues, so that we can get there on time and start moving our people immediately. I may send in about 3 planes at a time. The evacuation will take place. It will start on Friday.
Elsewhere, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, has rescheduled the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, across about 100 centers over technical challenges in Tuesday's exercise. JAMB's head of Public Affairs and Protocol, Fabian Benjamin, says these in a statement made available to journalists today. Mr. Benjamin urged affected candidates to print a new examination notification today to know their new scheduled sessions. The statement added that about 100 centers out of the 708 centers participating in the 2023 UTME exercise across the country experienced technical challenges that prevented the allotted candidates from successfully taking their examination. And outside Nigeria, an Iranian court has ruled the United States government and a number of individuals and entities, including former President Barack Obama, must pay compensation for 2017 attacks carried out by the armed group ISIL. The court in the capital issued the verdict today based on complaints by families of 3 people killed and 6 wounded during the June 2017 attacks in Tehran. The building of the Iranian parliament and the mausoleum of the founder of Iran's current establishment, Ruhollah Khamenei, were targeted during the daylight assault that killed 17 people in total. The court ruled $9.95 million needs to be paid to compensate for financial damages, while $104 million and $199 million are for moral and punitive damages, with a total nearing $313 million. Those convicted in the case include the U.S. government, Obama, former President George Bush, Central Command, and its former commander, Tommy Franks, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Treasury Department, weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin, and American Airlines Group. And here in Africa, foreign diplomats evacuate Sudan in the midst of fierce fighting. Millions of civilians are being left behind to survive as best as they can, leaving many frustrated at what they see as an armed conflict between previously Western-backed generals. A ship carrying 1,687 civilians from more than 50 countries fleeing violence in Sudan docked in Saudi Arabia today, which is the largest evacuation effort by the Gulf Kingdom so far. Saudi Arabia has received several rounds of evacuees by air and sea since fighting broke out in Africa's 3rd biggest country on April 15th, part of what analysts describe as an effort to position itself as a major player in responding to regional crises. And while Suella Braverman has ruled out introducing a safe and legal route for asylum seekers in Sudan to seek refuge in the United Kingdom, earlier Rishi Sunak refused to commit to such a route when pressed by the SNP's Westminster leader, Stephen Flynn, during Prime Minister's question time.
I think the measures that we've announced are about doing what the British people want us to do as a government. That's why the Prime Minister made stopping the boats one of his core 5 pledges at the beginning of the year. That's why I've been working pretty much every day since I was first appointed as Home Secretary on this set of measures. So whether it's introducing new measures in legislation, in our illegal migration bill, whether it's a new deal with Albania, pursuant to which we've now relocated over 1,000 people back to Albania, or whether it's our deal with the French, or whether it's bearing down on the backlog, or whether it's new sites for accommodating asylum seekers. On a whole range of measures, we've been working on a plan that is going to fix this unacceptable problem. That being 45,000 people arriving here illegally last year, over £6 million being spent a day on hotel accommodation. That is an unacceptable situation. So this is what the government is focused on.
Meanwhile, the post-Sudanese president, Omar al-Bashir, is being held at a military hospital in Khartoum after fighting between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces broke out and engulfed the prison where he was being held. The army said in a statement today that al-Bashir and about 30 other prisoners were moved to the Aliyah hospital at the recommendation of the medical staff at Koba prison. Al-Bashir was being held at Koba prison in Bahari, just north of Khartoum, along with other members of his former government. The prison was attacked during fighting between the 2 military groups, which led to a jailbreak on Sunday with thousands of inmates escaping. The release of about 25,000 convicted criminals added to a growing sense of lawlessness in Khartoum, where residents have reported worsening insecurity with widespread looting and gangs roaming the streets. Meanwhile, a former Sudanese politician, Ahmed Haroun, wanted for alleged crimes against humanity, has said he and other former officials are no longer in jail following reports of a breakout. And still in Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa's office has said South Africa is not planning to quit the International Criminal Court as suggested earlier by the president, citing a communication error from his ruling ANC party. Hours earlier, President Ramaphosa had said the African National Congress had decided to withdraw South Africa from the court, but last month issued an arrest warrant against Russian President Vladimir Putin. The ICC warrants means that Africa, due to host this year's BRICS summit of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, would have to detain Putin on arrival.
Ramaphosa had said on Tuesday that the ruling African National Congress, ANC, would aim to repeal South Africa's membership of the Hague Peace Court, which has cases of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. But on Wednesday, Ramaphosa's office said he had made a mistake.
It is prudent that South Africa should pull out of the ICC, largely because of the manner in which the ICC has been seen to be dealing with these types of problems. And there's also been commentary, I believe, from Amnesty International, where there's been a reflection on what many people believe is an unfair treatment. And our view is that we would like this matter of unfair treatment to be properly discussed. But in the meantime, the governing party has decided once again that there should be a pull-out. So that will be a matter that will be taken forward.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa rode back on Wednesday from a pledge to quit the International Criminal Court months before he is due to host Russia's Vladimir Putin, who is wanted by the ICC for suspected war crimes. According to a statement issued by the presidency, South Africa remains a signatory to the ICC in line with a resolution of the 55th National Conference of the ANC, held in December 2022, to rescind an earlier decision to withdraw from the ICC. The warrant against Putin in March means Pretoria, due to host the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa bloc summits this year, would have to detain him on arrival. Putin has not traveled abroad since the ICC warrant was issued. He has made only one trip outside the former Soviet Union to Iran since launching the invasion of Ukraine last year. On whether South Africa would arrest Putin, Ramaphosa said the matter was under consideration. South Africa has refused to condemn the invasion of Ukraine that has largely isolated Moscow on the international stage, saying it wants to stay neutral and preferred a dialogue to end the war. It is not the first time South Africa has attempted to withdraw from the ICC. There was an attempt in 2016 following a dispute a year earlier when Sudan's then President Omar al-Bashir visited the country from an African Union summit. It refused to arrest him despite the fact that al-Bashir was facing an ICC arrest warrant for alleged war crimes. The controversial decision to pull out was revoked when the domestic court ruled such a move would have been unconstitutional, only to be revisited, however briefly, by Ramaphosa. The presidency has on Wednesday said that South Africa would work towards establishing an African Continental Criminal Court that would complement the ICC as a court of last resort. Temi Tekpe Ajijala Oluwaola, Western Spring Television.
In Europe, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said the European Union is becoming militarized at a record rate, and there was now little difference between the European Union and NATO. Lavrov told a news conference at the United Nations in New York that a recently signed declaration essentially states that the NATO military alliance of 31 members will ensure the security of the 27-member EU bloc. He appeared to be referring to an EU-NATO declaration in January on the strategic partnership, which called Russia's invasion of Ukraine the gravest threat to Euro-Atlantic security in decades. But the declaration does not state that NATO will ensure the security of the EU. Lavrov also referenced actions in recent years that saw Sweden and Finland increasingly taking part in NATO military exercises and other actions that were meant to synchronize the military programs of NATO members and neutral states. Russian President Vladimir Putin has long complained about NATO's expansion and used that as justification for invading Ukraine. Elsewhere, jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny says investigators have opened an absurd terrorism case against him, possibly leading to a further 30 years in jail. Navalny appeared in a Moscow court via video link today as part of an extremism case. He added that it did not make sense to argue he had committed terrorism while in prison. It was gathered that Russian investigators had also put 11 people on an international wanted list in a case linked to Navalny. Earlier this month, Russian investigators linked the former politician to the death of popular military blogger Vladimir Tatarsky, who was killed by a bomb in a St. Petersburg cafe, but Navalny's allies have denied any connection to Tatarsky's death. You are watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Ahmadu Bello, Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history.
Thank you for staying with us. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky says he has had a long and meaningful phone call with China's Xi Jinping, their first contact since Russia's war began. He said on Twitter that he believed the call, along with the appointment of an ambassador to Beijing, would give a powerful impetus to the development of their bilateral relations. China confirmed the call, adding that it was always stood on the side of peace. Until now, Beijing has sought to show a neutral stance on the Russian invasion, but it has never condemned the invasion, and last month President Xi paid a 2-day state visit to Russia. He referred to President Vladimir Putin as his dear friend, proposed a vague 12-point peace plan, and insisted that China stood on the right side of history. However, he made no commitment to providing Russia with weapons. In Asia, 10 police and their driver were killed in India's central Chhattisgarh state today when their vehicle hit an improvised explosive device, an attack police blamed on Maoist rebels. India's long-running Maoist insurgency began in the 1960s and has cost thousands of lives in the decades since, although violence has waned considerably in recent years. Today's deaths were the worst casualties for security forces in more than 2 years, and claimed the lives of police reservists returning from a mission to investigate rebel movements in remote Natawada district. Chhattisgarh chief minister told reporters the attack was very saddening and pledged to redouble efforts to combat the state's Naxalis, as India's Maoist insurgents are known. However, no rebel group has claimed responsibility for the attack so far. Moving on, Pakistani health authorities have confirmed the first case of monkeypox in the country. The infectious viral disease, earlier known as monkeypox, was found in a 25-year-old Pakistani man who recently arrived in Islamabad from Saudi Arabia. A health ministry official, Sajid Shah, said a patient has been quarantined in a hospital in the capital and contact tracing has begun. He added that an alert has been issued to all airports in the country and to provincial health departments to ensure surveillance, contact tracing, and rapid identification of suspected cases. A senior official in the ministry said the patient was sent into isolation on April 21st after his arrival in Pakistan. In other news, the Committee to Protect Journalists has warned that reporters across Europe are working under increasingly challenging conditions, and attempts to silence them have grown. In an extensive study released today, the US-headquartered organization said that while the European Union has initiated laws to support media freedom over the years, progress in finding sustainable solutions to combat threats against journalists within the bloc has been slow. More than 10 journalists were killed in Ukraine last year, while many in Russia have been targeted by Moscow's wartime censorship laws. In its World Press Freedom Index, 9 of the top 10 countries are in Europe, but the Committee to Protect Journalists argues that the environment is getting bleaker. And now to some business stories. Microsoft's $68.7 billion deal to buy video game company Activision Blizzard has been blocked in the United Kingdom by the Competition and Markets Authority. The proposed takeover would see Microsoft acquire such hit titles and Call of Duty and Candy Crush. But the regulator said it was concerned the deal would offer reduced innovation and less choice for gamers in the fast-growing cloud gaming business. Microsoft and Activision hit out at the decision and said they will appeal. A spokesperson for Activision said the CMA's report contradicts the ambition of the UK to become an attractive country to build technology businesses. And First Republic Bank's shares have plunged to a record low after the lender announced that depositors withdrew more than $100 billion, prompting fears of further bank collapses after the failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. First Republic stock closed down nearly 50% on Tuesday after the San Francisco-based lender disclosed that it lost 40% of its deposit in the first quarter as the banking sector suffered its biggest crisis of confidence since the 2007-2008 financial crash. First Republic saw its deposits fall by $72 billion over the period, a figure that accounts for a $30 billion rescue package announced last month by a group of 11 banks. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank last month drove fears of contagion across the banking sector, and investors have been closely watching the financial health of regional lenders such as First Republic since. Other banks in the United States also saw their share price register significant falls, including Western Alliance Bank Corporation, Zions Bancorp, and JP Morgan. Google parent company Alphabet beat market expectations in the first quarter of 2023 with a net profit of $15 billion. The company disclosed these on Tuesday in a sign that the search engine behemoth is regaining its footing. The tech titan has found itself under pressure due to a general slowdown in advertising spending, over hiring during a COVID-era boom, and a major challenge by Microsoft on artificial intelligence. Its quarterly revenue came in at nearly $70 billion, $1 billion better than expected by analysts. And in the same 3-month period that the company said it would lay off 12,000 staff, or 6% of its workforce. In its results, Google announced a $2 billion charge for expected cost for the sackings. Google became a focus of worry when Microsoft-backed ChatGPT was released and quickly went viral late last year. In sports, Ryan Mason has insisted he feels ready to step into the Tottenham head coach role following Christian Stellini's dismissal on Monday, and wants to be considered for the position full-time in the future. Mason was reinstated as acting head coach following the sacking of Stellini after less than a month in charge. After moving up to the top job on a temporary basis from his backroom role while Antonio Conte left, Stellini lasted just 4 games before he was dismissed in the wake of Sunday's damaging 6-1 defeat at Newcastle.
naturally I feel comfortable. So it's just part of being involved in football, I guess. Have to be ready, and I am ready. I don't doubt that. So it's just business. We've got a really big game on Thursday. We've got another one Sunday. So the focus on my behalf and the group is to fully prepare for that. A reaction, absolutely a reaction. Obviously Sunday was disappointing for us, and I would hope and expect that there is a reaction from not only the players but from everyone in this building and everyone involved in the club as well.
Erik ten Hag says Manchester United have a plan to keep the clever Harry Kane quiet against Tottenham in Thursday's battle for the top four. Kane is a top target for Ten Hag this summer, but he must first find a way to keep the 29-year-old England striker from inflicting a damaging blow to United's chances of securing Champions League qualification next season. Tottenham may be in crisis, but the club's record scorer has not allowed that to hamper his form, with 26 goals to his name so far this season, providing Ten Hag with a dilemma about how to keep him from adding to that tally on Thursday.
It's quite clear his impact on the game from Spurs, and we have a plan, of course, before for that, and home game we did very well. So for tomorrow we need that a very good plan as well. You have to defend them as a team, and he's a clever player. So don't allow him to come in the situations. He can have a big impact on the game.
To tennis, British number one Emma Raducanu has withdrawn from the Madrid Open with a hand injury hours before her first-round match. The 2021 US Open champion, hindered by a wrist problem in recent months, was set to face Bulgaria's Victoria Tomova today. 20-year-old Raducanu is now almost certain to drop out of the world's top 100. Her withdrawal came a day after a brief news conference in which she used just 58 words to respond to 16 questions. Raducanu suffered discomfort in her right wrist against Andorescu and later said she must find a long-term solution. And before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. A federal high court in Abuja has dismissed a suit filed by Aisha Binani Dahiru, seeking to be affirmed as the winner of the Adamawa State governorship election. And outside Nigeria, an Iranian court has ruled the United States government and a number of individuals and entities, including former President Barack Obama, must pay compensation for 2017 attacks carried out by the armed group ISIL. President Cyril Ramaphosa's office says that Africa is not planning to quit the International Criminal Court as suggested earlier by the president, citing a communication error from his ruling ANC party. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. My name is Femi Olanikwe. Thank you so much for watching. Good evening.